We're an Instacart family.
Oh my goodness, we saved so much time with same-day grocery delivery.
So we joined Instacart Plus.
And now we're saving more money.
We get unlimited free delivery on orders over $35,
5% credit back on pickup,
and a family account to shop together.
Did you know members save $460 a year when they order at least once a week?
I do now. See how much you'll save. Visit instacartplus.com for 2 weeks free. Average savings exclude membership fee. Individual savings may vary. Credit back excludes alcohol. Paid membership auto renews. Additional terms apply.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woo-hooer, a hand clapper, a high-fiver? I kind of like the high-five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses, so don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Two amateur comedians working nightclubs for peanuts in the 70s ham-handedly and quite accidentally stumbled into the roles of a lifetime, portraying what they felt were their least likable characters, but instead found themselves leaving an indelible mark on TV pop culture history for generations to come. Their names? David Lander and Michael McKean, but you might remember them better as Lenny and Squiggy. This is their legend. Let's step into the funhouse.
Where am I?
You just entered the Dandy Funhouse.
Hello! And welcome to the Dandy Funhouse video show, podcast, and blog. This is where we explore the outer realms of retro pop culture, toys and games, and all the fun stuff. I'm your host, Neil Dandy, and in this episode, we're going to gather around the old 70s pop culture campfire, toast some marshmallows, and lean forward while I bring you the legend of Lenny and Squiggy. David Lander and Michael McKean met in college in the late 1960s at Carnegie Tech, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the drama department, where they became fast friends. Sharing a love for acting and comedy as students, they became practically inseparable. Then post-graduation in 1971, David and Michael relocated to Los Angeles and spent time studying under an improv coach named Roger Bowen, who trained them in scene flow and comedic timing. This led to them accepting an invite to join a radio comedy troupe known as the Credibility Gap, who are known for doing news satire for radio stations like KRLA and KPPC. And this comedy troupe also included Harry Shearer, who later would go on to greater fame in many film and TV roles, which he still does today. In addition to radio satire, they also performed live, using their radio reputations to garner opening act slots for rock shows. In fact, as lore would have it, they once opened for Richie Havens at the Long Beach Fox Auditorium, and as was the custom in hippie culture of the time, venues like the Fox and Fillmore were known to hand out fruit in the lobby. This particular show, oranges were given out, and the Credibility Gap found themselves dodging airborne citrus throughout their whole performance. From that day forward, they only accepted offers where they'd be the main attraction, and no hurlable fruit allowed. David and Michael continued performing with the Credibility Gap all the way up until 1979. Now, during the earlier part of their run with the group, they created a couple of characters named Anthony Fazzigliano and his pal Leonard Kosnowski. You see where I'm going. These characters were based on people from their childhood they weren't necessarily fond of, but had interesting personalities. Anthony, played by David Lander and later changed to the character name Anton, had a cousin named Squiggy, who only had 2 words in his vocabulary. The first, kick, and the second, I'm not repeating. It was during this time, around 1976, despite performing frequently around Southern California with the Credibility Gap, they were still very much starving artists. But something very interesting was brewing on the other side of town that would change their lives forever. It was the time of year when TV producers would bring their ideas for new shows to the networks, and the brother-sister team of Gary and Penny Marshall, along with producers Lowell Gans and Mark Rothman had just pulled off the network television coup of a lifetime. They sold a series to Larry Silverman at ABC without a pilot episode, which was unheard of, based on the characters of two girls who were bit part guest characters very briefly on the hit TV show Happy Days. I'm of course speaking of the now infamous duo of Laverne and Shirley. Larry had seen the girls' characters on Happy Days, thought they were funny, so he said, "Hey, what the heck, let's give it a go." Michael Eisner, one of the executives at ABC, revealed that in the beginning, Cindy Williams, who played Shirley, didn't want to do the show. So they shot a 7-minute screen test with an actress named Liberty Williams, no relation. They eventually convinced Cindy to shoot a screen test, and Eisner went and hid the footage of the Liberty Williams scene from the other executives because, in his mind, there was no other actress for this role besides Cindy. And I think we all thank him for his deceptiveness. In the beginning, they only had the characters of Laverne and Shirley, as well as Carmine Ragusa, the big ragu, played by Eddie Mecca. They needed more supporting cast to play working-class Milwaukee Wisconsinians. According to an interview with David Lander, Penny Marshall was familiar with the credibility gap, and in particular the Lenny and Anton characters, so she called David on the phone with the idea that Lenny and Anton would make a good storyline as last-ditch dates for the girls on the first episode. She tried to explain her idea to the other producers of the show, but they weren't seeing the vision. So, she invited David and Michael to a party at her and her husband Rob Reiner's house to celebrate their new contract with ABC, also being attended by the show's producers and writers. David kind of waffled on the idea because the credibility gap were performing at the Improv that night, but once the performance was over, he and Michael made the last-minute decision to show up and figured, if nothing else, they're going to get some free food. They showed up and pretty much sat in the corner by themselves, not knowing anyone. Then Rob Reiner, meathead from All in the Family, he approached and asked them to do Lenny and Anton for the guests. David and Michael were baffled at these requests for these particular characters because from their roster of personalities and skits they'd developed over the years, they felt these characters were the least commercially appealing ones they did. Nonetheless, they obliged and got themselves into character. Since they didn't have hair gel, they just slicked themselves back by pouring glasses of water over each other's heads and improv the whole performance with material they'd never done before and never have done since, about one of them deciding to attend butler school and learn how to become a manservant. They performed about 15 minutes of very inappropriate material, and the guests were howling. Writer Mark Rothman called a quick sidebar to the show's other writers, wondering if this act might work if cleaned up for television, and they came to the conclusion that if it were made family-friendly but was only a fraction as funny as what they just saw, it'd still be the funniest thing on TV. And they didn't know how right they were. The following day, Gary Marshall called up the boys and asked them to be on the show. They all agreed to change Anton's name to Squiggy, and 2 weeks later, Lenny and Squiggy found themselves live in front of a studio audience making episodes of Laverne and Shirley. But there was a problem. They were only amateur comedians. They didn't have union cards. It meant they couldn't work on a union production for a major network. To get around this, the show's producers hired them as apprentice writers because they also weren't members of the Writers Guild. They received very nominal pay at first, with the idea they would be worked into the show in small increments, beginning around the 3rd or 4th episode. But as it turned out, the writers got themselves into a pickle and were experiencing major issues with the first script and ended up writing Lenny and Squiggy into the first episode to bail out the storyline. In the beginning, writers would hand David and Michael routines to do, but the comedians respectfully protested and requested that because they'd been working together and doing these characters for so long, it had become almost second nature to them how to play off one another and what the characters would say and do in most any given situation. The producers agreed and gave them carte blanche to do whatever they wanted, write their own jokes and routines. So basically, the Lenny and Squiggy that we all saw, loved, and enjoyed came directly from David and Michael themselves and was an entirely organic improv performance. And it worked. The show became an instant hit, and by its third season, Laverne and Shirley was the most watched program on television, receiving a staggering 6 Golden Globe nominations as well as an Emmy nomination. You want to talk about Lenny and the Squigtones? Let's talk about Lenny and the Squigtones. During the first season of Laverne and Shirley, the production team came up with an idea that various members of the cast should hold a talent contest at Schatz Brewery, where they all worked. And Lenny and Squiggy entered as just a 2-piece vocal and acoustic guitar duo, calling themselves Lenny and the Squigtones. And they also had a guy in a chair next to them doing absolutely nothing. His name was Max. They played a song called Night After Night, which was about 2 nights in a row. It's probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen on TV. You go look it up online, but set your drink down first. This marked the first time they would perform as Lenny and the Squigtones. Over the next few years, opportunities slowly presented themselves for more and more musical numbers. And this also opened doors for musician friends of David and Michael to become backing players for scenes which called for a band. A couple of these backing players included Harry Shearer of The Credibility Gap, and also Christopher Guest, who took on the stage name Nigel Tufnell. Yes, I hear you guys screaming in your phones and computers right now. We'll get to that here in a minute. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, hang tight. I can only Lenny so much Squiggy at a time. Sheesh. Okay, this band was used here and there throughout the show's run, and in 1979, Casablanca Records took an interest and struck a deal to produce an album entitled Lenny and Squiggy Present Lenny and the Squigtones. It was recorded live at the Roxy Theater in West Hollywood, California. Combination music and comedy album with songs like If Only I Had Listened to Mama and many others intertwined with various comedy routines and gags. I got this record when it was first released, and today I actually own 2 copies of it. One opened that I could listen to, and another one that I kept sealed in mint condition because, I'm a geek. It's a classic, but didn't really catch on. The 50s culture craze of the mid-70s was dwindling, and the American public was ready to move on to something new. The 80s were calling, and a new wave was on the horizon. Lenny and the Squigtones did, however, get invited by Dick Clark to perform on American Bandstand, and he actually dedicated a good chunk of the show to them, spoke with the different members of the band, and really gave them a great spotlight. But having failed to gain much traction with the act as a breakout of Laverne and Shirley, which was also beginning to wane, Lenny and the Squigtones didn't do very much after that. In 1980, Laverne and Shirley needed a breath of fresh air, so they decided to move the setting of the show from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to Burbank, California. Lenny and Squiggy, of course, followed the girls and set up the Squignowski Talent Agency. Then in 1982, Cindy Williams became pregnant, and 2 episodes into production of the 8th season, she ended up filing a $20 million lawsuit against Paramount, who now owned the show, over Paramount's reported demand that Cindy work on her due date. This is according to Wikipedia. The case settled out of court, and Williams was released from her contract. The remainder of the 8th season was produced without her, and ratings continued to decline. Nevertheless, viewership was still strong enough for the show to be picked up for a 9th season with just Penny Marshall. Penny agreed, under the agreement that production be moved to New York. ABC balked at the relocation expense and removed Laverne and Shirley from its schedule in May 1983. Despite retaining rights to their own characters, Lenny and Squiggy did not continue after the show's conclusion, except for a brief walk-on reunion in 1993 on a TV special called A 70s Celebration, The Beat Is Back, performing a skit where they were catching up after being mad at each other for years because Lenny said something bad about Squiggy's mom to his face instead of behind his back like he should have. In 1984, David Lander was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and went public in 1999. He spent much of his time speaking at MS-related events and released his autobiography in 2002 called Fall Down Laughing: How Squiggy Caught Multiple Sclerosis and Didn't Tell Nobody. David Lander passed away in December 2020 and was remembered by his old pal Michael with a simple early picture of the two posted on Twitter with no words, as if there were any that could suffice. As for Michael McKean and the other members of Lenny and the Squigtones, for those of you who were screaming at your phones and computers a minute ago, Michael McKean, Christopher Guest, and Harry Shearer all teamed up once again with director Rob Reiner to create the cult classic movie This is Spinal Tap, which was a fake documentary about the fake adventures of a fake heavy metal band. The movie also spawned tours of this fake band, which actually played their own instruments in real life and led to a very successful follow-up album, Break Like the Wind, which featured a special guest performance by none other than Cher. Michael McKean has also performed in many more roles for film and TV, most notably and recently the character of Chuck McGill on Better Call Saul, for which he received a Primetime Emmy Award. And he continues to enjoy a successful career to this day. And that, my friends, draws nigh the legend of Lenny and Squiggy. I'll bet you learned a thing or two. I know I did. Be sure and use it to impress your friends. Now, before we douse our 70s pop culture campfire and retire to our pup tents to dream sweet dreams of Lenny and Squiggy, I'd like to encourage you that if you enjoy this content and wish to support future productions, please consider becoming a Dandy Funhouse supporter by visiting the patronage page at dandyfunhouse.com. Supporters gain access to exclusive bonus features. I might show off my Lenny and Squigtones records if I can find them in the studio. And super supporters also gain access to those same features. Plus, I'll personally mail you something awesome from right here at the Dandy Funhouse Studios if you provide your mailing address. Podcast listeners can also donate through their favorite podcast app if it offers that feature. And 5-star reviews get my undying gratitude. Night-night, campers. Come back real soon to the Dandy Funhouse, where everything is always fun and dandy.
Could we do that Milwaukee Moon thing that we did the other day?
Not a play.
Milwaukee moon creeping across the sky. I've been such a lonely guy, but I can't spend these moonlit nights with you.
Milwaukee moon, here's a big hello. Take it to a guy I know and say I'll be there soon. Milwaukee moon.
Violets are blue, my heart was too, but not anymore. 'Cause I've been a brand new man since you shone through my door. Doobie 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 wah.
Milwaukee moon, when you're on the rise, I can see my baby's eyes, and he can hear my tune. Milwaukee moon.
Had to try this. Here we go. All right.
Doobie 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 wop. Milwaukee moon, when you're on the rise, I can see my baby's eyes, and she can hear my tune. Milwaukee
We're an Instacart family.
Oh my goodness, we saved so much time with same-day grocery delivery.
So we joined Instacart Plus.
And now we're saving more money.
We get unlimited free delivery on orders over $35,
5% credit back on pickup,
and a family account to shop together.
Did you know members save $460 a year when they order at least once a week?
I do now. See how much you'll save. Visit instacartplus.com for 2 weeks free. Average savings exclude membership fee. Individual savings may vary. Credit back excludes alcohol. Paid membership auto renews. Additional terms apply.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.